The three things I want to ride in my lifetime: the Batmobile, the Millennium Falcon, and this current run of the New England Patriots. Well, while the Patriots don't have Batman, Han Solo, and Chewbacca, they do give me the feelies, squishies, and all those glorious, glorious feelings that I can't get because I'll never ride those other things. Hey Monomaniacs, it's Dirk coming to you from Southport, Maine. Yeah, I'm away on vacation, staying at a place that, well, kind of reminds me a little bit of a famous hotel in Colorado called the Overlook.
Come play with us, Danny.
It's frickin' freaky, but it's cool at the same time, let me tell you. And then when I made that analogy, I remembered I'm here with two twins too.
Come play with us, Danny.
Oh my God. But anyway, there seems to be going around on the interwebs lately. Everybody's talking about how they got into modeling. Well, my story's not really much different from you guys, except I have mine in two different categories. Two. One is BV and the other is AV. And that is before vagina and after vagina. The reason I put it that way is the BV is when I was a little kid, before I found the V's. And my story is rather simple. I was about 4 or 5 years old back then. And I know specifically I was that age. I know it sounds young, but I know I was that age because back then we lived in a specific house, and we moved after I turned 5 and to get me into a better school district and that kind of shit. Parents, you understand what I'm talking about. That's how I know specifically that I was about 4 or 5 at the time. And I remember when I built these models, and of course it was building with my dad because, 4 or 5-year-old doesn't really know how to build a model by himself, right? But I remember specifically building the first one ever was the Tom Daniels Batman kit. I remember we built it. Dad didn't paint it because it came molded in yellow, just slapped on the decals, and I feel like I played with that thing until the wheels fell off. The other two models that I built in that same time frame before we left that house was, and I don't remember the order, but there was two other ones. One was the Monogram Sherman Tank Calliope, okay, the Screaming Mimi, and the other one is the F4 Phantom by Monogram. Now, for those, most of you guys seem to be car guys that I follow here. So, a Screaming Mimi was a Sherman tank from World War II, and it had this big rocket rack on top of it. It just fired all kinds of rockets at once. It was freaking kick-ass killer machine. It was really, really cool. And the other one was an F4 Phantom, which is a Vietnam-era war jet. Again, built, played with forever. Now, on the Phantom, I remember painting the camo scheme. I remember trying to do my best to paint that camo scheme. And actually, I didn't do too bad of a job, if memory serves me well. Well, for a 4 or 5-year-old. But what I remember I screwed the pooch on is when I went to do the underside and tried to paint it white. I really screwed up because it took like 30 coats of brushed on white paint, and I still never got that bottom white. It was very streaky, blotchy, and you could see the colors through it. It was just horrible, but I was 5 years old, so what the hell are you going to do, right? After that, got older. I remember specific models I just remember for some reason. I can't tell you why. But as I got older, I remember, well, all my cousins were really into modeling too. So I always looked, I was the younger one, and I remember looking up to everything that they were doing. One cousin, he was an advanced modeler for the time, if you ask me. He even did like, he did all the cars. He did trucks, semi-trucks, stuff like that. And I remember following his lead trying to build a trailer, a tractor trailer one time, a box kit. Thought it'd be real easy, 4 sides and bottom and roof and everything. Man, it fell apart, kept falling over trying to glue it. Probably, it was just one big glue bomb when it was finished. But it didn't deter me, I kept going. Specifically, I also remember one trip to Maine. All my cousins up there also did models. We got into town. We were staying at my grandmother's house. For some reason, my dad had to go to drugstore to get something. Maybe Tylenol, who knows. But back then, for you older guys will remember, models were available everywhere. Toy stores, department stores, and in this case, they were also available at drugstores. You would go in and they had a small collection of models. Now you can't find them anywhere. They're a lot harder to find. But anyway, he bought me the Monogram models. Monogram was big back then, obviously, as you can tell. He bought me the C47 148 scale Skytrain. I remember that specifically. Got back to my grandmother's house. I was so excited. I popped that box open. Now, I couldn't build it because we weren't home. We didn't have our stuff. But I remember looking through the parts, and it came with, I think it was about 9 paratroopers. And I remember playing with those paratroopers. That's what I did for that time that we were there, is play with those paratroopers. And the other cool thing that was in that kit that I'll never forget, helped shape my modeling after that day. And that was the flyer that came in the kit from a modeler called Shepard Payne. He was hired by Monogram back in the day to do all their builds and for their cover art, and he added these flyers on dioramas and stuff like that. Diorama for the C-47 was, it was sitting on a tarmac, D-Day, all the paratroopers were standing aside getting ready to go on the thing, on the mission. And when I got home, I tried to follow his guide to the letter to building it. So tried to find things so I can make the rucksacks and stuff that didn't come with the kit. I remember specifically using plumber's putty to mold them and everything, and I did pretty good with it for a kid my age. Problem is, as some of you may know, plumber's putty never dries, so they are always soft and squishy. It was really kind of annoying. It was what it was, right? So those were my pre-V days. After that, you know, started thinking about girls. A lot about girls. Man, a lot about girls. And then cars, girls, all that stuff came into factor. Ended up getting married to a woman that ended up ruining my fucking life for a real long time. Then back to girls again after that. And I remember in that time frame of non-building, I came across, it was definitely in the 90s, that I was into a show called Seaquest. It was on TV. And I was in a store one time and I came across the model of the ship from the show called the Seaquest. And I remember buying it. I wasn't doing models back then, but I bought that model kit for some reason. And I never built it, and all these years that model's still come around with me. It's been opened, but not a freaking piece is missing out of it, because about a couple years ago, I went looking through it, and I made sure everything was still there because I love that ship. And now that I'm back into it, I plan on building it someday. But that's another story, I guess. But what I did is, about 9 years ago, actually, yeah, the woman I'm with now, for Christmas one year, she bought me 2 model kits for Christmas. She bought me a Mustang from Revell, which was like a car I used to have, and she bought me the Titanic, which I have this great fascination for. And to be honest with you, at the time, I'm like, what the? My outward expression was, thanks, dear, I love it. Inside, I was like, what the frig over is this for? I don't get it. But I started tooling around with them and looking at them and stuff like that, and I decided, why not? Give me something to do, get the hell, get away from life, because our life was crazy back then, just life issues and stuff like that, and not bad, just crazy, just the way things were. And that was the start of it. That was all over again. Now I've got so many freaking kits in my house, it ain't funny. And now I build everything. I build cars, I build trucks, I build tanks, I build ships, I build figures. I mean, you name it. Aircraft. When I first got into it, really, back again, that was really the biggest thing after that Mustang was aircraft. I built lots and lots of aircraft. Love aircraft, especially military stuff. So, as you can see, my story isn't really much unlike anyone else's. We started, we stopped, and then we picked it up again. And to be honest with you, right now I have no intention of stopping. I think about it all the time. What can I do with this kit? What can I do with that kit? Researching on different objects, stuff like that. What can we do with this? Even though I don't always get a chance to build, or the mojo isn't there to build all the time, I do really want to, and I think about it all the frickin' time. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. This is Dirk from Southport, Maine, the rocky coast over here. Look at all those rocks and ocean. It's so cool. Signing off, saying until next time, be strong.